Welcome to the Higher Learning Podcast, the show where ambition meets strategy. This is your go-to space for career truth, financial empowerment, leadership growth, and real conversations that are unfiltered and uncut. If you're ready to elevate your career, confidence, and future, then you're in the right place. Join our co-hosts, HR professionals Yolanda, Erin, and Caroline, right here, right now, for an episode of Higher Learning. Welcome to a new episode of Higher Learning. I'm Yolanda Carey, and today, this episode explores the real unfiltered journey of transitioning from government work to uncertainty of freedom, of entrepreneurship, and we will be interviewing an honored guest and friend, Lachelle. And I'm so grateful to have her on the show today. We will break down the mindset, shifts, and fears of financial realities and break through what we come through after stepping out on our own. Hey, ladies. Hey, Caroline and Erin, how are you?
Good afternoon. Hey, how's everyone doing?
Fine. So what you know new? What do you know new? What have you been doing this past week?
Hey, every day's a journey, right? It's all about persevering and enjoying the journey, dealing with the ebbs and flows. It's been a good week.
All right. How about you?
It's been a crazy last couple of weeks, and it's been a blur. I'm gonna be honest. Between birthday parties and weddings and graduations and everything that happens in June, it's just like so much going on, and I can't believe it's already Juneteenth tomorrow, you guys. So happy Juneteenth. And I'm like, where's the time going? But one day at a time. That's all we can do, right?
All right. Well, today we will welcome Lachelle. She is a mother, a wife, an entrepreneur, and a former leader in the federal government. She spent decades exercising her experience in public service, and after having a successful career in the federal government, she made a courageous move and pursued life on her own without the federal government. So I can't wait to introduce her and have her explore and tell us what she's passionate about, what she's been doing, and how she's been making it not just financially, but at home as a stay-at-home mom and wife. So let's welcome Lachelle.
Welcome, Lachelle. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Great. First, just want to say thank you all for inviting me. It's really an honor to be here. As Yolanda said, we actually met in the federal government. And so one of the beauties of working in the government for 2 decades is I walked away with some really great friends. Yolanda, lifelong friend forever and ever. So I adore you. Let me just share a little bit about kind of how I started. I very shortly after high school, I was going to school, college part-time, working part-time. And someone told me about a job opportunity working as a contractor for the federal government. And I said, you know what, let me apply. So I applied and got the position, started working for what is now ICE, but started working there very young, 19 years old. And shortly after working there, 9/11 occurred. And, never, ever will forget that day. Completely just shaped so many changes in in history, right? But a result of that was the development of the Department of Homeland Security. And because I was the entry level person in the office I was in, they did not have a personnel security database to use, and our agency let them borrow the database. So because I was so entry level, they could afford to let me go for a few weeks. So I went there, I trained the staff, and let me tell y'all, I was just mind blown when I got there. One, I was being treated very differently because I was in a position of where I was training people on what to do, how to work the system. So there was a lot of respect that I received at that very young age, right? And when I got there, I said, it was just so much opportunity there. And I just saw it left and right. There's so many things that need to get set up. And so I said, wow. And I told my temporary supervisor, I said, I don't want to go back to the other place. And she says, well, let me just put in a request for an extension for you. And, I was at DJS for 12 years. I never went back to the former agency. And so, really, really cool. So I was a contractor for 8 years. And then I finally made that transition into federal employment 8 years later after being a contractor for the federal government. So my background's in national security programs. I've been in so many rooms that people would, kind of die to be in, especially, like I said, at a young age, right? There are things that I implemented when I got to DHS that are still being used today, right? So it was just such an experience. But after the 12 years, leadership had changed, things had just changed. And I started to ask myself, is this really what I want to do? Do I want to, maybe try something new, right? I was honestly getting a little bored in the position. Like I said, 12 years, loved it. It was exciting. But then 12 years later, I'm like, okay, maybe I can try something new. So I started applying for other jobs and I landed a position and I took a lateral. At GSA, General Services Administration. And while I was still doing national security programs, it was very different, like total culture shock coming from the intelligence community into a non-intelligence community agency. So that was a huge transition for me. People walking around with badges, in intelligence community, to put your badge away, don't go out at lunch. And I get there to the building and I'm like, why are these people walking around with their badges out at lunch? So huge no. But and it's funny because so many things have shaped who I am today because I spent so many years in that field, right? But I wound up at GSA, and again, totally different culture. I learned there that a lot of people teleworked, and I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm like, people get to take their laptops home and work from home? Like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, wow, that sounds amazing. And so then my mind starts turning and I'm like, I think I want that kind of job, and at the time it was typically only IT people who did that. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, just thinking about the lifestyle that I wanted, I was like, that seems pretty cool. I would like to do that. And so I was in that position. And then at the same time, 2019 came and me and my husband, we got pregnant with our first daughter. And then shortly after, I think the whole world knows what happened, COVID hit. And, ironically, I guess I could say I kind of got my wish, although I wish it wouldn't have happened that way, the wish to work from home, and we all did, right? So I got to experience that first time in my career. And what was unique was that, I had my daughter, had her at home, actually, and I was able to stay with her for a year and a half before I had to put her in daycare. And my whole life, I never had anyone around me who didn't go the path of, having a child, going on maternity leave, and then having to go back to work, right? That's what I expected, but it didn't happen for me because it wasn't an option. And I just want to say that because I think your perspective is everything. So that really, having that time alone with her, I got a lot of time to think about really what were my priorities, what was important, because this is a new phase of life, right? I'm no longer in my 20s. I was in my 30s when I had her, but very different. Now I have a family, I have a daughter to raise, and so I just started questioning, like, is this the right space for me right now? Like, do I want to do this? And then, we started coming back in the office. And then what happened, everybody knows also, the administration changed. And then everybody was told, hey, you got to come back in 5 days a week, 5 days a week. And I think we all probably said, ooh, but for me, it was the 5 days a week. It was that ultimatum, the 5 days a week, or you can exit the government, right? And I don't know about y'all, but I have always told myself, hey, you should be blessed to be in this position. You are lucky. You make good money. I told myself that this was my destiny. This, like, my destiny had already been predetermined. Or I just knew that. That's what I told myself for years. You know, you're going to ride this out. You're going to do well. You're going to show up to work. You're going to get up to your GS 14, 15, SES, you know, and you're going to retire. That's what you're going to do. And I told myself that for years. And I wouldn't say it was motherhood that really, I kind of had these thoughts before, right? Before I had these thoughts in the back of my mind, telling myself, keep going, you got this, you got this. But in the back of my mind, I had this little voice telling me, is this really for you? And I don't know, you know, I'm sure other people experience that. So that kind of went on. But when I had my daughter is when it really, the voices got really loud, you know, and it was like, I don't know if you know, this is going to be where you retire. I think there's more for you. I kept getting this voice, you know, speaking to me. There's more for you. There's more for you to do. Right. And so when that opportunity presented itself in 2025 to either stay or leave, it took me a while to decide, but I wound up leaving the federal government in July of 2025.
Wow. Wow. Congratulations. So what was that turning point? I know even for myself, for years, people say you do not give up your good government job. And
yes,
you know, you have the idea that, like you said, you're going to retire from the government. Do you recall that actual moment that epiphany hit that you were like, okay, I'm going to do this?
Yeah. So I will say it wasn't just one moment. Like I said, I kind of always had that voice, you know, kind of saying, is this going to really be it for you? Is this really going to be it? You know, and I did amazing things in the government, met amazing people, did some amazing things. But I started to really look at what was important to me, what were my values, and something for me, I really wanted to be present with my daughter. And it hurt so bad. And so many mothers experience this when you have to come off maternity leave and put your child in daycare or have someone else care for them, right? And that was really, really tough for me, even though initially when it started, I was blessed because that was at that time, I think we were only going to be in two days a week, right? So it wasn't every day for me, but I really feel like, Yolanda, to answer your question, I had those voices, but when 2025 hit and I realized, wow, now, are you going to be honest with yourself? Because I've already told myself how important it was for me to be physically present with her, right? So now it's like, hey, you've been given an ultimatum. What are you going to do? Are you going to be true to yourself, or are you going to stay in bondage? Is what I felt like. I felt like I was in bondage. That's what it felt like. Mm-hmm. Wow. And so I prayed about it very heavily, and my answers were prayer. You know, I mean, I was really like, God, is, you know, I know this was happening to everybody, but I was like, is this my time? You know, is this it? Like, should I take this opportunity? Right. And some people, you know, and I have to tell you guys, I felt so guilty because there were people around me who were getting fired, they had no option. And I honestly, when it was happening, I was saying to myself, you're lucky. They don't have to make a choice. It was already made for them. And I was so embarrassed to think that, right? Because it was very ugly. And I knew people very close to me that got fired. Mm-hmm. But I still had those thoughts. And I'm like, wow, like, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do? So that was my moment, Yolanda. Like I said, it took me a few months because we had the opportunity right in the beginning of, you know, I think that was February, March, when they sent out the opportunity to say, hey, you know, you all can leave and, you know, take the DRP or you can stay, you know. And so I really did make that decision on my own, heavily with my husband through prayer. And we decided in July that I would take on entrepreneurship and he would support me the whole way. So
that is wonderful in terms of laying out your thought process and hearing how it didn't just occur overnight. I'm curious to know, as you were going through this, how much preparation had you done to make that transition? Because I'm sure, based off of just life and everything, Perhaps you did not have a heads up early. And I'm just curious to know, how much preparation did you have, and what did that preparation process entail?
Yes, yes. Thanks, Caroline. I was in my mind, I told myself that I probably was not going to retire from the government. So that happened kind of leading up to 2025. Things had just changed in the job, and like I said, I had my daughter, so I kind of was like, I don't think I'm going to be here that long. But I was like, how do you transition out of the government, right? We literally were not in a financial situation where I could leave my job, which is why I said I really felt like I was in bondage. So, I worked with someone to develop a plan, and this was the tricky part. This was the faith, because the plan was not to leave in 2025. I actually had a few more years based on my plan. So I didn't exactly follow the plan. And let me back up a little bit. In 2024, I went to the Blacks in Government Conference, and I went to a time management class, because that's where I always need to be, in time management class. So I went there, and the guest speaker, she was absolutely amazing. There were two women speaking, and I said, I got to talk to this lady. Literally what I had been praying about was direction for my career. And this woman spoke to me within 5 minutes. I was like, I know why God had me come all the way to Tampa, Florida. It was to meet this woman. And I almost sat there and just in tears, but I didn't want like a maniac, And I left, and I was like, I don't need to go to any more classes. Like, I know why I came down here to go to this conference. And it was my first time going to a Blacks in Government conference, actually. So, she talked about, personalities and just vision, having a plan, being real with yourself about where you are, what you really desire in life. Are you fulfilling God's purpose for your life? And that was something that I had been praying about. And so for her to sit there and literally repeat it back to me, I was like, whoa, I got to meet this lady. So and working with her, she worked with me actually on finances. My finance started off as finances, because I was a person who grew up not learning about finances. So she helped me in that realm. And then, it just became really clear that this was an opportunity. Once she helped me so much with finances, I wanted to help other people with finances. And that's literally what happened. And so I didn't realize at the time that there was an opportunity for me to own my own business and to get into this new industry that I had. Literally, if you ask me, what is one thing like you would be dealing with finances? Absolutely not. I'd be like, that's the last thing I would be doing, because I don't know anything about finances. But so I had started pursuing that part-time, right? So that was a side hustle at first in 2024. I started pursuing that. And so that was my plan. But I was supposed to wait, like I said, a few more years. But I said, you know what? I prayed. I was like, this is it. This is my year. I'm taking it. I'm going out. Like, courageous decision, 100% on faith, 100% support from my husband. And it felt so relieving, like I said, because for me, when I took a real assessment of where I was and how I felt at that time, I felt like I was very much in bondage. And I said, I cannot move forward with this. I can't stay because of the fear, because fear is not from God. So,
Wow. So what should people prepare for before leaving the government?
A plan. Look at me. Follow the plan. No,
prepare a plan.
Prepare. Definitely. I think the first thing that comes to people's mind is money, right? Money. Where are you with your finances? How can you, if you leave the federal government, how long do you have emergency funds set up? What do you have set up to support you, right? And everybody's situation is different. Some people have mortgages. Some people live by themselves. Some people have a spouse or a partner where, the monthly income is shared, right? So different situations. Some people still live with their parents, and they don't have to pay as many bills. So depending on your situation, number one, definitely take a look at your finances to see what you'll need to supplement in order to survive, right? We never want to put ourselves in a situation where we wind up losing everything, right? I would recommend having a side hustle, right? Looking at that, I think that's a pretty popular thing nowadays. Not relying on one income, having multiple streams of income. So I would say that if that's something that you feel is in your future, that you may not stay in this position, no matter what position you're in, right? If it's something, like, I don't think this is going to go long term, I definitely would recommend getting some side hustles, exploring those and trying some of them out, right? Try them out before you need the money, right? Don't quit and then you don't have any money. So that's what I would recommend.
Okay, thank you.
So, Lachelle, I mean, the saying, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plan. So I'm glad that, you moved when the Holy Spirit told you to move and went on ahead and exited the government in 2025. But you said you were pursuing finance. So what did that mean? What exactly were you doing?
Okay, that's a great question. Yes, and totally led by the Holy Spirit. Totally. So what that means is, like I said, I didn't grow up learning about money, right? And as a result, I made I had terrible habits spending money. Terrible, like not budgeting, not saving enough money each month, finding myself living paycheck to paycheck, which makes no sense because, again, I make good money, right? And I was telling myself that, really not holding myself accountable, telling myself that every time I would spend money, it's okay, because why? I'm going to get that next paycheck in the next 2 weeks, right? It was always okay. I was always telling myself, oh, I can make that up later. I can pay that back later, right? And nobody, honestly, I have a wonderful mother and father, but, siblings, I'm the youngest, but nobody showed me anything. And, there were some serious consequences as a result, right? So, once I went through the process and figured out how I can better myself. And once it happened, I went through the process. Like I said, I met this amazing financial advisor at the Blacks in Government Conference, and she showed me how to do it. And we did it. I got my husband together and we did it. And we're still going through the process, but now I know, and it inspired me so much. Like, as soon as I saw her, I said, oh my goodness, I have to tell everybody I know about this, because I can't be the only one that didn't know this, right? So that's what I did. And then I was like, I really want to do this. I want to share this with people, And so I signed up. I did the training. I got licensed, and I'm still in a process where I am learning more, right? But when I say from the bottom, I started at the bottom. I have no financial background at all. Like I said, I'm terrible with finances, right? Or I was terrible with finances. So literally the last person, last thing I would think I'd be doing. So Aaron, did that answer your question?
Yeah. So nowadays, is that what your business is? I understand you're an entrepreneur.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. So that's what I do. So I meet with families. I do educational, I do workshops. We do group sessions. I do one-on-ones. I really work with individuals and families to help first educate them about money, right? How money works. Really getting into saving, looking at your budget, like how to properly do it, right? Establishing a good foundation for your household. Because you need that strong foundation. So we talk about protection. We talk about savings. We talk about investments. All of those things in the right order, paying off debt, right? And not in a way that you're going to save thousands of dollars, of course, depending on how much debt you have. We all have some debt, right? Whether it's a mortgage or credit cards or student loans, right? Very big conversation. So many people live in paycheck to paycheck in America. So many people with so much high student loan debt, And the reality is you'll be paying that stuff off for the rest of your life almost, Like, how do you get yourself out of that? How do you get to a space where you have a plan, right? So you could sit down, just like when you want to lose weight or you want to get fit, right? people tend to go to a personal trainer, right? Or some type of fitness coach. Same thing, you want to deal with any mental illness you may have, you go see a therapist, With your money, you need to talk to a professional, someone who can help walk you through how to set your finances up, how to get your affairs in order. It's so big. And like I said, in the African American community, the dollar bill lasts 6 hours in our community.
Wow.
So what's the name of your program or the name of your company?
My company, so I'm independent. So it's Lachelle Chaffins. My website's LachelleChaffins.com. And the brokerage that I work for is called Jones, Jules and Associates. And so that is the lady I met at the Blacks in Government Conference. She is the brokerage. Oh, she's the owner of the brokerage. So I work with her and a team of amazing people. And when I tell y'all, it is such therapy to meet with my team. We meet weekly on Zoom, twice a week, and they pour into me. And this was the thing. I'm gonna tell you, when I first joined, learning about finances and everything, right? And I joined the team meeting, and I say, these people got to be kidding me. Like they're just showing all the love and support, and I'm like, I'm really side on them. Like, sure, they're just doing this because I'm new and I'm here, right? And no, so real, and I'm in a space where people who've already gone through this journey, they are pouring into me. They want to see me succeed, like so bad. So I have so much support. I've never had that much support, and not knocking the federal government at all. I've never had that much support on any job that I've worked, but definitely it made me think about my career in the federal government. And I'm like, wow, like, typically in a situation like this, your boss may not, and I've had some amazing bosses who did lift me up. Like I will be very transparent and clear about that. But it can sometimes be rare in corporate America for someone at a higher level than you to really pour into you like I'm being poured into, like I have been poured into over the last year.
So what do you know now that you wish you knew from the very moment you received your first check? Ever?
What some lessons, some things I would say always, and I can think back on my federal career and I can think about it even right now, is so true, is to get comfortable with uncomfortable spaces. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to put yourself in the rooms that you typically wouldn't walk in, talking to people that you typically wouldn't talk to, right? Because if you are the most knowledgeable person in your group, who is stretching you, right? Who's stretching you? So that's something I have really learned that I would say in my federal career, I always looked for opportunities. I always raised my hand to volunteer. And sometimes maybe I didn't want to, but I always got something from it. It always stretched me and I grew from those experiences. So that is something really key that I would say for people to always do. And no matter what field you're in, entrepreneurship, corporate America, always think to put yourself in those rooms and to be in uncomfortable spaces, because that's where we grow. That's where we grow, when we're a little uncomfortable.
So I'm curious, and I can definitely understand what you said earlier in terms of a lot of people at different age ranges, different geographical backgrounds, educational backgrounds are not taught valuable lessons when it comes to finance, are not taught about how money is supposed to work and how to enhance money working for themselves. When it comes to folks that look like you and me, as you are aware, the unfortunate reality of the past couple of years in terms of finance and in terms of employment has not been the most beneficial. So when we're talking about someone just starting out in entrepreneurship or someone who's been in the game of entrepreneurship for years, what advice, what tips do you have if those local banks, those local credit unions aren't willing to invest in you? I know the venture capitalist space, when it comes to African American women, we receive less than 1% of venture capital. That's been an unfortunate but reality for us for years. How can you speak to some of those challenges, just based off of your experience, or someone starting out and looking to go into entrepreneurship? How can they perhaps take some tools or guidance?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Caroline. So a couple things popped in my head when you said that that I want to speak to. What I do is I teach people how to remove the middleman, right? So I'm very big on education, right? I was taught to grow up and put my money in the bank and save it, right? I want people to know that there are other ways than just saving your money in a bank. There are ways to invest your money so that it grows, so that it's yours. You don't have to give your money just to a bank and let them, because ultimately what's happening is they're investing your money that's sitting in the bank. So it really comes down to education about people understanding what their money is actually doing and how to make it grow, right? So I'm really big on educating people first. And then in regards to someone starting off as a entrepreneur, I want to tell people that not to be very careful of this, because I told myself that this season I'm in is the season I'm always going to be in. And that's just not true. So that's another thing, kind of back to your question, Yolanda. Don't sit in a season and think, oh, I'm going to be here forever, or things are always going to look this way. That is not the truth. And that will hold you back. That will definitely hold you back if you're telling yourself that. So be very mindful of what we're speaking, what we're telling ourselves. I'm very big on speaking what I'm seeking, okay, until I receive it. Very big on that. Affirmations and speaking what I desire, right? Caroline, what was the other question you asked?
Just in terms of the venture capital gap, yeah. And how not to allow that to deter you perhaps from goals of pursuing entrepreneurship.
Yes. So definitely educating people on other ways to get money for their business, whatever venture they have, right? So it's options. It's knowing that there are options. And I think that's where we can get stuck, is telling ourselves there are no options. So I work with a team of people who've been in business, collectively, we don't need to get it collectively, but, 30 plus years experts in this area. So when you work with me, you don't just get me, you get a actual team of experts in all the financial areas. So we're really big on educating people on the options that you actually have and alternatives, right? Because sometimes we can see things. It's very big. It's a lot of stuff right now on social media about finances, right? And it's like, is that true? Are these people actually licensed in this field, or are they just social media influencers? I've seen countless videos from some celebrities, and I look at it and I'm like, that's not the whole truth. And there's so much trust that these people have, and people believe it, right? You're like, oh, that's my favorite actor, or that's my favorite artist, and you believe it, right? It looks like they should know what they're talking about because they appear to have a lot of money, right? Or they actually do. But we have to be very careful of who we are trusting to tell us that information, and make sure that they can back it up, right? But there are some serious gaps in regards to what you're talking about. So again, very big on showing people how to build your own money, right? what options you have with the money you have. People have 401ks, people have, not everybody, but what can you do with the money you have so that it can grow? That's what I would say, that those are some of the options we get into, not to go too deep into all of the options.
Thank you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what's some tips that you would give someone starting as an entrepreneur, whether they're going into finance or maybe starting another type of business where they doing customer service or selling a product?
I would definitely say, for someone starting out new, like I said, you have to have a plan. That is number one. Mm-hmm. Have a plan, because you don't want to get yourself in a situation where the lack of money is dictating how you move in your business, right? So you need to have a cushion, and you need to have that flexibility. Be honest. Be honest. That is something, have integrity. Whatever you're telling yourself, whatever you're telling others, make sure you're telling yourself the same thing, right? So if I say that I'm going to do something, I'm going to show up and do this. Like, take this for instance. I told myself, yes, I am going to join this amazing podcast and I love what you guys are doing so much. Like, I am been rooting for you since I heard about the first episode. So, I'm just elated at what y'all are doing. It is absolutely wonderful. But, saying that you're going to do something, like I said, getting in those uncomfortable spaces, right? My goodness, like I am naturally a very shy person. I would say I'm a introvert, to some extent, but you have to get out of your way. You are blocking your own blessings, right? So you need to have a real talk with yourself, figure out, no one's perfect, but you got to figure out where your strengths and weaknesses are, right? And areas that you need to grow in, especially if you're in a business where you need to talk to people. If you're a tough person telling yourself, well, I don't like to talk to people, well, you got a problem, okay? Because in order to have customers and things like that, you have to talk to people, right? And I know we have social media now, like I said, yeah, you can do that, but there's times you're going to need to talk to people in person too. So, so just identifying those areas and really working on them, stretching yourself, putting yourself in those uncomfortable spaces. That has really allowed me to grow, like, in this short amount of time since I left the government. It really has. And this right here is one example.
So how has it changed you? What does your husband see different about you since you left the federal government space?
Well, I'm laughing because I told my husband I'm going to retire him. And so that was the deal, right? He's like, if you're going to step out and you're going to do this, like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to retire you with what I'm doing. So that's the plan, number one. But it's a lot. It's heavy, though. It's heavy to carry all of the bills, right? Mm-hmm. That's pretty heavy. And, initially starting off, right, before you start making money. Now, and I will say this, we do have some side hustles, okay? Like I said, always have some side hustles. So we have some side hustles. So we weren't completely at zero when I left, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, he has been absolutely wonderful, like absolutely wonderful. He's supportive. He's supportive of me. He goes out when he's at work and he shares with other people what I do. I mean, I'm so blessed. He's been an awesome partner, and I'm beyond looking forward to the day where I can just say, that's it. You can put in your resignation. You can put in your resignation as well. So that is our plan. I know it's going to happen. And another thing I'm thinking of is consistency. Oh, I'm so glad it just popped in my mind. You have to be very consistent and you have to be very disciplined when you're an entrepreneur. That's what I want to tell anybody looking to become an entrepreneur. I realized about myself that I had a discipline problem and a consistency problem. So I would do things, like I said, it's very different. Becoming an entrepreneur I say one of the biggest things it's done is showed me kind of who I am. Like it's in you're going to find out who you are because you're all by yourself, right? So if your business is failing, you got to look in the mirror, right? You can't, it's not like when you're in corporate America, And you can say, oh, well, they didn't let me go to training and they didn't let me do this and they didn't let me do that. It's you. You really face who you are, where your faults are, where your strengths and weaknesses are. And you have to make a decision if you're gonna do it. I learned that, I would have days where I was on it doing really good. And then I have days where, I said like, oh, I'm tired today. I don't feel like making that post on social media, right? No. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. You need to be consistent. You need to be intentional all the time and have that discipline. Is so key to be disciplined in this. And it's something you're going to learn, and that's okay, right?
So go ahead, Caroline. Sorry.
No worries. I was going to also ask, and not overlook the other hat that you wear, a very important hat of being a mom.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance being a new entrepreneur and still motherhood? Because I can imagine that, as you said, there's some key things that you have to do as an entrepreneur. Hold yourself accountable, be intentional, be disciplined, and maintain your core values and get out there and really lead and drive in order to meet clients. But how do you do that balance? And is it always is that notion of balance even reality? I have my thoughts.
Yes, thank you for that. So just answer that. I don't believe in balance, right?
Good.
I tried it, and that's probably why I was in time management class. But no. So how do I show up in all those areas, right? And that is definitely a process that everyone has to learn, right? I mean, I was thinking about that when I was in corporate America as well, but it is very different now because of the weight that you carry as an entrepreneur. Like, again, you're not necessarily getting those steady paychecks every week or every 2 weeks, right? So it feels a little different. It feels a little heavier, but it's also very exciting, the space that I'm in. I feel very blessed that I'm able to do this. I'm sorry, Caroline, what was the question again?
You answered.
My mind was going somewhere else.
No. I was just curious as to how you manage being a mom, being an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And are you able to always manage?
Yes. So yes, that's what I want to speak to. So there are times. So starting off, when I actually left, I was homeschooling my daughter, okay, by myself. And I realized, although I loved that idea, I loved it. I'm like, oh, this is great. I can be at home. I can homeschool her, have full control over everything. She was in school at one point, but, I realized that, I can't do all of that. That does not work. So I decided, that I was going to put her in a program where she's still homeschooled, but it's at another facility. So I was able to do that. And that was a sacrifice I had to make, right? But what I told myself is I'd rather sacrifice right now while she's younger. And I still make sure like I pick her up and we have a wonderful evening together, right? I'm very intentional about picking and planning time with her, right? I don't have to spend necessarily 5 hours with her every day to let her know I love her, to let her know mommy is here, right? But it's being intentional about the time that I'm focused, right? I try very hard not to tell her, oh, mommy has to do this meeting. Mommy has to be on here. Mommy, because I know that will take a toll over time, right? So, and also just with our marriage. So you may have to find a village. You may have to look for resources. That's what I would say. Be prepared to have a village. Be prepared to have other resources that you might have to rely on, other tools when you have children and you're starting a business. I spoke to a coach that I had years ago, and she is a midwife. And I asked her, I found out she had 2 kids, and being a midwife is a very demanding position, right? You're essentially always on call. And I asked her, how does she manage that with 2 kids? And she said, I want to be honest. She said her first baby was that job. It was a job. And she told me it did affect her relationship with her children. And so that is where my values, I won't let it get to that point. But like I said, you have to make a decision to kind of in the earlier, the entrepreneur, the beginning phases of starting a business. It's going to require your attention. It really is. So you really have to be intentional and mindful of how you're going to still fit in your children, how you're going to fit in your family, your spouse, your whoever, you care about and love. It is very important to still fit them in, for sure. Mm-hmm.
That is great. That is great. Thank you. So what I'm hearing for us to give our audience tips is that you're saying to stay focused, stay motivated, to build a support system, to also make sure that they have a financial runway of some savings.
Have a plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, have a plan and time management.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
and don't be fearful of placing yourself in rooms that you normally wouldn't place yourself in, or being, stretching. Entrepreneurship is about stretching yourself and holding yourself accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So Erin, would you jump out there? Would you do it?
Absolutely, I would. I have so many more questions that I have for Lachelle, but I know in the interest of time, we might have to bring you back again and do another episode with you. But yes, I would jump out there and do it if I could. Yes. Anyway,
I love it. Mm-hmm.
How about you, Caroline? Would you do it? Would you jump that boat?
As long as I've checked certain boxes. I have a priority of boxes that I would need to. Having a plan is one of those key boxes. So I'm not going to say no. I wouldn't. I would be willing to, absolutely, especially given the changes within society and technology, and being able to have these types of conversations the way we are now virtually. That opens up a window for looking at jobs, looking at career, looking at entrepreneurship through an entirely different lens. So, one of my passions is, and it's just a dream at this point, but looking at ways in which I can leverage some of my skills, not necessarily just only here in the U.S., but leveraging those skills with other colleagues, perhaps in some other, tropical areas. And if I'm able to make money doing that, absolutely.
Isn't that a dream? That would be a dream come true, right?
It absolutely would. And I wanted to say 2 things. You said the word dream, and I wanted to say never stop dreaming. I stopped dreaming. I stopped planning. I stopped dreaming about my future, right? Because like I said, I told myself that I was already, my future was with the federal government. I was going to retire, right? And I was like, that's it. It's been determined for me, right? So never stop dreaming, and dream big, right? We serve a big God, right?
Amen.
So why are we having these small dreams? Why is our vision so small? Why are we limiting ourselves, right? And I would say that was definitely, Yolanda, to your question about the moment it shifted for me in my career. It wasn't changing careers. It was when I realized that I had more choices than I realized that I had. That is what shifted, because I never told myself I had any other choice. I thought I had reached my peak. I thought that was it. So
getting out of your own way.
Getting out of my own way. Absolutely. And with the finances, what I have learned is the finances, if managed correctly, it gives you options, and those options give you the freedom, right? And that's ultimately what I was seeking. I wanted flexibility. I wanted to design my own life, right? And in order to do that, I need money.
Well, Michelle,
Yeah.
One of the segments that I do on our podcast or on Higher Learning is the side hustle. And you mentioned that you said, oh, well, we had some other side hustles, so we weren't completely at zero. Would you mind sharing what some of you and your husband's side hustles were?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to share one with you. So this is really, really interesting. So during COVID, in 2020, I don't know if you all know this or have you heard of this app? It's called Swimply. So during COVID, 2020, no public pools were open. Okay. No pools were open. And so this guy, and sorry, I forget his name, but the owner, of Swimply, he thought of a good idea to create a company that is essentially the Airbnb of pools. So private pool owners can rent their pools out to the public via the app. And, at first when I heard it, I said, oh, I'm not going to have all these strangers out of my house. Like, no way, And so we let the first year go by. But in 2021, I said, let's try it. Let's just see what happens, And so this will be year 5. We have been doing it. And it's amazing. And we learn something new each year, right? Learn something new, but it brings in a really good amount of side hustle money during those seasons. You know what I mean? And it's opened our eyes into other things. You know what I mean? Airbnb options, event rental spaces, things of that nature. And we have, we don't live in a mansion, but we have a unique property, and we've grown and just really created an amazing, relaxing retreat style backyard that we rent out. And it brings us both so much pleasure to be a space where people can have memories. These are memories. I get really emotional when they have kid birthday parties come over, because I'm like, oh my, I get to witness this. It's amazing. Bridal showers, baby showers, things of that nature. I'm hoping one day to get a micro wedding going back here, but we'll see.
Oh, that is nice. I love that for you.
Absolutely. I'm curious to know, is that space is it? And you, of course, gauge as to, how much you want to reveal, but is that something that you have to, if you're interested in that type of creating that type of space at your home, is that something that has to be permitted through based on the locality in which you live? And how does that work? I would assume it does, because it would come with liability and insurance and all of that.
Yes. So the company does provide you with insurance, but you do need to check with your county to see what their rules are. So it does vary from state to state, county to county. I believe that the company was really, when they first started, it was very heavily focused in California, Texas, Florida, right? Because they keep their pools open all year round. So, but ironically, think about this, guys. I don't know I haven't looked at the stats for last year, but in 2022, one of the top 5 earners was someone in DC.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I can believe
they don't have they don't have a lot of pools. So how
supply versus demand.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. So she made a killing. So yeah. I love this. I love hearing about these creative ideas that people have, and it just keeps me thinking, and what I have right now, I really look at this like designing my life, right? I look at my life as an ecosystem. So it's not how do I fit my business into my life? Just how do I make it all work together? Right. And that goes back to that balancing, right? How can you create a life where everything supports everything and everything complements everything, or for the most part, right? When I take my daughter out, when I take her out to the playground or wherever, I'm very intentional, and I'm looking around to see who's there, who might need to hear what I do, who might I be able to help, right? So I'm not just there playing with my daughter. I'm there potentially helping another family, letting them know about what I do and that they have options, So I'm always kind of thinking like that about my life. I always want to treat it like a ecosystem.
I love that.
Well, that's a great segue, and that definitely aligns with higher learning and what we aim to do as a resource to all entrepreneurs, those that are just starting out, those that have been in entrepreneurship for quite some time. We hope and aim to be invited to become part of your ecosystem. So hearing your story has been absolutely great.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just want to mention that I'm part of a book club, and one of the books that I've been exploring is called Side Hustle: From Idea to Income in 27 Days. And it's by an author by the name of Chris Galaboo. And I just really think that it's really important to have a side hustle. And I just love this segment. And I love the fact that you don't have just one side hustle, that you have several. And so thank you for sharing that one with us. I might have to take a dip in your pool.
Yeah. That sounds like a higher learning event.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would love to have you all over. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you. This is awesome. Okay, you guys. So, Ms. Lachelle, we just want to thank you again for joining us for this episode of our Higher Learning Podcast. And as always, you guys, send us your questions. Send us your topics you want us to discuss. If you want to come on our show and be a guest, let us know. Email us at higherlearning@gmail.com, and follow, share, subscribe, and we will see you guys here every Wednesday at 7 p.m.
All right. One more time, Lachelle, what's your website or your email for your financial company?
It's LachelleChaffins.com.
All right.
LachelleChaffins.com. Thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing everyone again soon. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.